everybody, welcome back to another informational video. I'm Fatima.
And I'm Sharon. And today we're talking about the 6 steps to getting an ideal tenant for your investment property.
Starting off with the first step, which is property details. In this step, we want to determine when the move-in date should be. Now there's going to be 2 factors to consider. If the property is tenanted, we're going to go based off when your current tenants are leaving. If the property is vacant, if it's ready for move-in, that would be as soon as possible. If there needs to be any upgrades, we want to take that timeline into consideration. After that, we want to think of the ideal tenant, and how we're going to think of that is by taking into consideration the demographics of the property. If we're nearby a university, we're thinking of a student. If we're downtown, we're thinking of a young professional, or in the suburbs, we're thinking of maybe a young family. So all those different locations would make for a different ideal tenant, so we would want to discuss that. We'd also want to discuss the rent price, and how we do that is we actually go on our MLS and we check in the surrounding comparables and see what they've been renting for over the last 30 to 60 days, and we use that as a point to determine what your property should rent for. Finally, we want to think about the inclusions and exclusions, which would be the hydro, the gas, and the water. Is that something that we're going to include in the rent, or the tenant will be setting up separately? And we also think about the furnishings, the appliances, what is actually included. That way it's very clear for when the new tenant takes over.
And this brings us to our next step, which is listing your home. So this step entails getting photos ready, getting the description prepared, and ultimately listing it on the market. Prior to photographs, you will want to ensure the property is depersonalized as much as possible so the prospective tenants can easily envision themselves living there. Next, we will want to generate an appealing and engaging description to describe your property and showcase its value to the best of our abilities. Now the property is finally ready to be listed on the MLS and other platforms such as rentals.ca, realtor.ca, Zumper, etc. So me and Fatima actually like to go the extra mile and list properties on our social media such as Facebook, Instagram, including our group pages as well, to ensure it's seen by as large an audience as possible. This brings us to our next step, which is showings.
Now that we're at the showing step, this is a crucial step because we're going to get feedback, pivot if need be, and it's actually a really important step throughout the whole process. We have 2 different kinds of showings, ones where we're going to be taking the tenants and ones where the other realtors will be taking the tenants. When it's going through the MLS, realtors will see the listing and bring in their qualified tenants. As well, we can get tenants that are interested through realtor.ca that come directly to us as the listing agent. And we can also get tenants that are interested through the other platforms and social media. When we have tenants that come directly with us, we have a vetting process that we go through. We just do that to ensure that the showing is not a waste of time for anybody and that they are the right fit for your property. Once we ensure that they're a right fit for your property, we schedule the showings in 2 different ways. Again, this takes us back. Is your property vacant or is it occupied? If it's vacant, we show anytime. If it's occupied, we try our best to group the showings so that we are not creating any tension with the current tenants.
So the next step is the application process. This entails filling applications, verifying details, and checking references. So to be a little bit more specific, as your realtors, we will be taking care of all of the paperwork and conducting all of the background checks for each candidate. We love to go above and beyond and are as extensive as possible in this step. This step is crucial in the leasing process, so we like to ensure we leave no stones unturned.
And right after the applications are in, is the exciting step. It's when we approve an application, of course, after consulting you, the landlord, and just determining which application is the best fit. Once we've approved the application, we get to collect the deposit, and we also make sure that they have their tenant insurance in place, and if utilities are their responsibility, making sure they switch those over to their names before move-in.
And the final step to finding your ideal tenant is the move-in step. Now, at this stage, we want to ensure the property is clean, and we're going to also be handing keys and setting the right expectations. Between Fatima and I, we typically like to include a pre-move-in inspection that includes the tenant and you as the landlord, and this is to document the condition of the property in order to protect all parties involved in the transaction.
Now, you might be thinking, these steps are easy enough. Why would I go with a realtor and You're honestly going with a realtor just for that peace of mind and for our experience. The cost associated with leasing a property is typically 1 month's rent, and that can save you a ton of headaches and money in the future just because we go through a process that is already been tested and tried to find you that right tenant.
As Fatima was saying, with our experience in having over 400 leases successfully closed, having the property on MLS, and as well as having a sign up on your property will ensure that we're reaching a wider audience to be able to successfully find you the ideal tenant.
If you have any questions or thinking of doing this process on your own, we are still more than happy to help guide you through the way. If you have a property that's unique and you've had difficulty leasing, we are also more than happy to jump in, give you some tips and tricks, or even just take over and relieve you of that headache. Feel free to reach out to us, whether it's via social media or even on our personal lines.
Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.